Okay. Well, everybody, what we have here at Enermax is something that we're going to be seeing a lot more of in the consumer AIO industry, and that is a pump-free AIO. So let me explain what Enermax is doing here. So first of all, what they have inside of this loop is a liquid that has a very, very low boiling point. So this one is 49 degrees. Underneath here is a 9950X that's running at full load. So as the heat from that processor passes up into this liquid, it hits its boiling point, it goes up into the loop, into a standard AIO 360 millimeter radiator. It condenses, it drops, and it gets cooled by the fans. Once again, goes back into the loop and replenishes the liquid in here. Now, what we're seeing here is very, very close to what some other folks are doing with thermal siphons like Noctua, for example, but in a little bit less complicated way. Enermax's idea here is to have something that's a little bit more, I guess you would say, consumer friendly when it comes to pricing. The other thing that they mentioned to me is the fact that because the way that they have this set up and engineered, the radiator always has to be at an angle because the fluid itself has to condense and then fall back into the loop. The nice thing about this is, though, is that they can custom tailor a radiator and fan solution for a case. This is not meant to be dropped into like a regular case. They want to actually design a whole ecosystem of cases and coolers around this system. Another thing that they're struggling with a little bit here is just the way the plastic reacts to the heat that's being generated here. Right now, the plastic only goes up to around 50 to 60 degrees before it starts to deform a little bit. On the other hand, they need to bring this up to a lot higher level for the next generation of processors. This 9950X is actually operating at 100% load right now, a little bit under voltage, so it doesn't like die during the show because that's about the last thing you want. But its temperature is hovering around the like 60 to 70 degree mark. Unfortunately, look, I asked them, you have to set up a monitor for this to actually show the temperatures. I'm taking their word for it. It's operating at 60 to 70 degrees, but there's no way to actually monitor it. Actually, the monitor that was there, they took away. So I've got some serious questions about that. Another thing they're probably going to do is, as this gets into the mass market and probably next year to 2 years, is make the pump head look a little bit different. Right now, if they add aluminum or something else, they're actually going to be able to bring that fluid to a little bit more stable level. Another thing that I like about this and why we're going to be seeing more and more of this on the consumer side and of course the data center side is that you're eliminating one of the main problem factors with any AIO, and that's the damn pump. Because if there's one thing you can't replace on an AIO, it's the pump. No, these pumps nowadays are not the loudest things, but the most important factor here is that if something dies on this, it's probably going to be your fan. It's not something that's going to be completely irreplaceable. But I want to know what you think about this. Is this actually something that you could see inside of your system? I'm seeing more and more of these around Computex, and to me, initially, I didn't want anything to do with them, but I'm starting to be convinced because at the office, we actually had an AIO pump die, and is like the worst thing ever, right? You've got your system running and suddenly it overheats. It's not a replaceable fan, it's that pump. So maybe there's going to be interesting going forward. The other thing I wanted to talk about is, yeah, power supplies might not be interesting to a lot of people, but I really wanted to talk about some of the limitations that are coming up, not necessarily internationally, but in any area that is 110 volt limited. So North America, here in Taiwan, some other regions. As we move towards the next generation of architecture, we're increasingly going to be tied to that 110 volt standard. So we're talking about like 1,650 watts continuous. And now, as these, you have no idea how many people are looking at me right now. As these GPUs and CPUs in creator workstations, in AI workstations, and even in gaming PCs start to get more and more power hungry as time goes on, that is going to be very limiting. Luckily, in some regions, they have access to 220, and that's why we're going to start seeing more and more of these power supplies. We're talking about 3,200 watts plus. And yes, that is extreme, and you probably need to get your whole North American house rewired in order to be running these things, but it's something that we need to start having a discussion about because it could limit everything from creativity to AI workloads when we're trying to do things in Canada, in the US. Anyways, something that's a little bit more up our alley is something that's 1,650 watts. So they're basically playing with the maximum allowable under the North American standard right here. But something else that Enermax mentioned to me is that they are actually going to be eliminating most of the power supplies that are under the 1,000 watt mark in their lineup because they believe that the new entry level is a 1000 watt silver to gold power supply. So that's actually where they're moving a lot of their production. The last thing I wanted to talk about is, of course, I'm a fan of fans, and the PF2 120, we're gonna start, like everything else, to see more fans going with aluminum, with metal frames, because we've very much reached the limit of what plastic can do. So this one that's an aluminum frame with LCP blades and a guide ring around it in order to direct the airflow. So the PF2 120, we're talking about 3000 RPM and about 110, 105 CFM. This is going to be released a little bit later this year. We are going to be including it in a 120 millimeter fan roundup. The good thing about this is that, I'm not supposed to say this, but it's going to be very, very affordable. It's going to undercut a lot of similar fans on the market. I can't tell you what the price is. You're going to have to wait for the roundup for that. So anyways, I'm Mike with Hardware Canucks. I hope you are enjoying our Computex 2026 coverage, and have yourself a great day. And I am boiling hot. Later, guys.